campus of North Idaho College and today's broadcast of the North Idaho College Public Forum. The crew is comprised of North Idaho College television students. Your moderator is North Idaho College political scientist, Tony Stewart.
Good afternoon. Starting today and going for the next 5 weeks, it is our pleasure to bring you a 5-week series on a terribly important topic, and that topic is the future of the United States. Will Orwell's 1984 be realized? It is with a very special pride that I introduce today's guest, and I speak for the panel in so doing. Our guest is Buckminster Fuller. He is known worldwide and has often been described as the world's friendly genius. His accomplishments are many, including being known as an architect, an author, a designer, a scientist, an inventor, a philosopher, American thinker, educator, and mathematician. For you who are familiar with Mr. Fuller, you know that he has received numerous honorary degrees, including 45 doctorate degrees. He has received over 100 national and international honors, including receiving the United Nations Planetary Citizens Award. It is with very special pride, Mr. Fuller, I welcome you to our program, and you have honored us today by announcing that you're going to have a formal statement to the world, and at this time we would like to invite you to read that statement.
I'm used to really speaking spontaneously, and I've never really tried reading on the television before. And I write for people reading rather than the way things sound. I've spoken publicly many, many times. So I hope I'm going to be able to get over this very important message. A very large number of Earthians, possibly the majority, sense the increasing imminence of total extinction of humanity by the more than 50,000 poised for rocket delivery atomic bombs. Approximately nobody of the 4.5 billion humans on our planet knows what to do about it, including the world's most powerful political leaders. Humans did not invent atoms. Humans discovered atoms together with some of the mathematically incisive laws governing their behaviors. In 1928, humans discovered the existence of a galaxy other than our own. Since then, we have discovered 2 billion more galaxies, each averaging over 100 billion stars. Every star is a chain-reacting atomic energy plant. Humans did not invent the gravity cohering the macrocosm and microcosm of an eternally regenerative universe. Humans did not invent humans, nor the boiling and freezing points of water. Humans are 60% water. Humans did not invent the 92 regenerative chemical elements, nor the planet Earth and its unique biological life-supporting conditions. Humans did not invent photosynthesis, by which Earthian vegetation can transform into life-supportive hydrocarbon molecules, the radiation received from our atomic energy generator, the sun, around which, at its 92 million minimally safe miles, we designedly orbit. Since all the cosmic scale inventing and designing is accomplished only by intellect, and is not by the intellect of humans, is obviously that of the eternal intellectual integrity we call God. In addition to brains, God gave humans mind. Human mind alone has been given access to some of the eternal laws governing physical and metaphysical universe, such as the laws of mathematics, chemistry, and the laws governing gravitational and magnetic interattractiveness, which varies inversely in respect to the second power of the distance intervening. Halve the distance and double the interattractiveness, as is manifested by the terminal acceleration of earthward falling bodies, or by the final snap together of approaching magnets. Within the last century, humanity has grown from a 95% illiterate to a 65% literate condition. Preponderantly illiterate humanity needed literate leaders. Now, preponderantly literate humanity is capable of self-determination in major degree. Humanity knows that only women can conceive, gestate, and bear forth both male and female humans. Women are the continuum of human life. Like the continuous tension of gravity, cohering space-islanded galaxies, stars, planets, and atoms, women are continuous. Men are discontinuous, space islands. Men born forth only from the wombs of women have the function of activating women's reproductivity. The present evolutionary crisis of humans on the planet Earth is that of a final examination for continuance in the universe. It's not an examination of political, economic, or religious systems, but of the integrity of all individual humans' responsible thinking and unselfish response to the acceleration of evolution's ever more unprecedented events. These are the disconnective events attendant upon the historic termination of all nations. What is going on is a swift integration of in a myriad of ways of all humanity, not into a United Nations, but in a united space planet people, always and only employing all the planet's physical and metaphysical resources, only for all the people. This evolutionary trend of events will result in an almost immediate higher standard of living for all than has ever been experienced by anyone. It will be accomplished through conversion of all the high technology now employed in weaponry production, redirected into living reproduction, blocked only by the political party traditions and individually uncoped with obsoletely conditioned reflexes. Failure to ratify Equal Rights Amendment by the thus far in history most crossbred world people's democracy in the USA will signal such lack of human integrity as to call forth the disqualification of humanity as elimination by atomic holocaust. You may feel helpless about stopping the bomb. To you, the connection between era and the atomic holocaust may at first seem remote. I'm confident that what I'm saying to you is true. The Holocaust can only be prevented by individual humans demonstrating uncompromising integrity in all matters, thus qualifying us for continuance in the semi-divine designing initiative bestowed upon us in the gift of our mind.
Thank you very much. And we're honored that you would take time on our program to make this public statement. Thank you. Our panel today is, first of all, Steve Meyer, a businessman in Coeur d'Alene, Lou Reed, a permanent panelist of this program, and to my left, Herb Webb, an engineer also living in Coeur d'Alene. I would invite Steve Meyer to ask the first question.
This morning, Dr. Fuller, you talked about integrity of design. Could you elaborate a little bit on how we get products that last, how we can design products that work correctly the first time? How does that fit into your concept of design integrity?
About getting products
that last, and how we get products that work the first time.
all I care about is products that have integrity. Old Henry Ford, first Henry Ford, developed his Model T. He was a farm boy to start off with, and he just inspired by the farmers. When he first developed his first automobile, then there were a lot of people who thought they could make money with it, and it was what later on turned into what we call the Cadillac. He went bust on that because they tried to make it too fancy. So Henry started all over again with his Model T. He found that a number of people thought he was going to make money with it, and they bought shares in his enterprise to help him get started. When he found that they bought the shares to make money, he was so upset by that he spent a long time and a lot of effort. He bought every share back so that nobody could possibly vote and push him in any way, because he was determined to see that the little farmer could get to the market, get his goods, and get his things back home. That's what he cared about. That it was going to be very complicated and take a lot of money to set up. He invented mass production. He invented the moving line, invented one thing after another, and he was always inspired. Henry Ford then was greatly opposed by those who liked to make money, and the Cadillac group were those backed by J.P. Morgan, who were people to make money with money. And they tried very much to put him out of business. They didn't like it, just doing the thing to make a better product just with integrity. Henry was almost put out of business by them because they borrowed some money from the banks, and luckily he had made a contract with all of his distributors that they must take so many cars each year if they wanted his distributorship. So he rushed his production, stepped it up very well, and forced them to to take the cars, and he was able to pay off the big amount of money he owed the Morgan banks. Henry Ford, during World War I, was very much against war. He made the mistake of buying a great steamship and calling it a peace ship, and he sent it around the world to different harbors. People just laughed at him and didn't do any good at all. So he said, if I can't get the war to stop, I'm going to get it over with in a hurry. And he had a factory in England, and he told the British, who were in the war long before the Americans came in, that he would help them get the war over, and they were delighted because of his great technical capability. The essence of World War I was alloys, and for instance, all the great steel makers financed by the money people. I want you to think about, for instance, U.S. Steel, the president of U.S. Steel. A scientist came to the president of U.S. Steel long before World War I and said, I can show you how to make it so it won't rust. And they had said, the more it rusts, the more we sell. How crazy can you get? This man is obviously insane. Put him in the insane asylum, take those papers out of his pocket. So this kept going on for a long time. When World War I was on, and the British were having a very tough time making it, one of the scientists went to the chief commander in the British forces and said, wouldn't it be just as good as getting twice as many guns to the front? We can make the guns that do get to the front last twice as long. The commander said, that's a great idea, but that's a crazy idea. And the scientist has been in the drawer here for 50 years how to do this, up these alloys. And so Henry Ford came into the picture with the British on alloys, and he learned all about alloys, which were invisible. He came back to America when the war was won and undertook to put alloys into his Model T. The money makers, General Motors, made fancy and fancier looking dashboards, and they tried to make their Chevrolet look something like a Cadillac. Henry Ford was called an obsolete, a stubborn old man who kept that black tin Lizzie. What he was doing was putting new alloys in. By the time he went from Model T to Model A, he had 54 different alloys of steel in there. Yeah. And that's why the car sat back of the farm and the rain didn't go wrong at all, kept working. And that's why the farmers bought his car. That's the only reason he really got such power. But when he had to do that, he found that he said, I can't afford to buy I-beams and plate from the U.S. Steel, which belongs to Morgan, and then melt it up to make my alloys. They'll just break me. So he had to get his own iron mines, he had to get his own steamship lines, he had his own blast furnaces, own refinery, he had to do everything right from the ground. He went to nature's basic resources. This got made more and more complicated. When he did that, then he said, I can't afford to have any metal in warehouse because I'm going to change my alloying. So he said, I can't do any more warehousing. I must then buy everything I'm going to use right from the ground. I need some material from Ikiki. I must have a ship sail today. I'll pay for it today and have my checkers on board. So he kept all of his, he invented then what we call the mobile inventory instead of having things in warehouses, which is used by big industry today. And Henry then led the way all the way to this extraordinary integrity. When Henry died, then his son didn't understand that. His son became excited by the money makers in Wall Street, so from that point on, Ford Motor Company began to deteriorate. We got to the point where during World War II was coming on, and the American automobile industry said, you know, to tool out for new cars cost a great deal of money. They thought that America was the only place where you ever could mass produce any cars, that we had sort of monopoly of it. So they said, we're going to put all of our tooling into, because all of our production has to go now for weaponry, so they stopped making automobiles during the war. Said, we'll put all of our tooling away, and when the war is over, we'll simply start the same tooling again, saving us billions and billions of dollars. So that's what they did, and they then got Madison Avenue to say to the American people, the GI said, keep everything the way it is till I get home, and everything's so perfect at home, and which would justify that. Meantime, with the war, technology advanced very greatly. Italy, Japan, Germany, learning a very great deal about technology. When the war was over, they instituted the new technology and started making automobiles and cameras and so forth. The Americans started with this obsolete car, all on the basis of how to make money. And that's exactly how and why Japan came in with integrity of design and took away the business. It's not a matter then of favorable trade balances or politics, it's simply a lack of integrity.
Lou Reed.
Dr. Fuller, I was very moved by the statement that you read to us, and I'd like to ask you to just chat a little bit more about how you think we're going to pass this final exam. How are we going to avoid the atomic holocaust as individuals? Are you calling for individual protest, a grassroots movement? How are we going to avoid it?
I'm simply saying that what's going on is a test of individual humans to see whether God has had a good invention or a bad invention. Are they somebody who's going to make more trouble, or are they going to help to make the universe work? Wants to know whether there's really integrity of the human individual. So it's a question of how you behave all the time, and if you really realize that it is absolutely essential in America that we have equal rights for women under the law, then whatever, I don't know how various people are going to act, but I'm simply, if we're going to find human beings really as a great vast majority behaving with integrity, it's going to go through.
But you think that individuals are the solution rather than any sort of governmental...
The only thing, as everything, I say, the individual humanist invention is being tested. Not political systems, I said, not religious systems, not financial systems.
But it's hard to know what I then as an individual can do.
All right, simply the courage to speak what you really think. Not kid yourself.
Herb Webb.
Yes, Dr. Fuller, do you think that a revaluation of our monetary system on units of energy rather than on the rather artificial gold standards or other standards would be beneficial to try to get us out of our economic depression?
We have to have mediums of exchange. That's no question about it. Very, very simple matter is when there's a man who's breeding milk cows and his children need shoes. And there's a shoemaker who uses cowhide to make shoes, and his children need the milk. And they talked about this together. This happened long, long ago, and they realize they can't cut up the cow and still milk it. So they get up a medium of exchange, because it takes many more hours to produce a milk cow than it does to make a pair of shoes. So then they take some common, say beads or something that a good kind of an accounting system, just count out. All they are is a scoring system, and that's what a monastery is. So we have these new computers today. The computers are going to help us do much of our very complicated counting, so that we may not even need the money. Simply we have a great confusion between what we call wealth and money. Money is not wealth. It is just a medium of exchange. Wealth is the organized capability of humanity using the discoveries it has made to take care of forward days of humanity. For how many days can you take care of so many humans? That's wealth. The money is quite different. So I think that an integrity of accounting in very complex ways, we're dealing total planet, total resources, total people, not in terms of local nations, is going to be very much easier, actually, with the computer.
We don't have a lot of time left, Mr. Fuller, but I'm so impressed with your term, Spaceship Earth. And many of our viewers have not heard your description. Could you tell us a little more about what you mean by Spaceship Earth and what's going to happen to the human race if we don't recognize this?
Well, when we began to discover rocketry, and that you really could rocket various items out of the gravitational dominance of the Earth, which incidentally is only 100 miles off the Earth, there's almost no distance at all. We began to talk about space program, and people, in the 1950s, we were talking about the space, and I found myself at the University of Michigan speaking to a very large audience, and somebody in the audience called out, and put up a hand, called out and said, "What would it be like to be in a spaceship?" And I called out to him, "What does it feel like?" We're nothing but a spaceship. We have been a spaceship for a million years, and we're so tiny and so big we haven't realized it. We're making 36,000 miles an hour around the sun. Doing so well doesn't make any noise. But you might as well catch on to, we're not just getting into a space program, we've always been a space program. Unless we can catch on to the fact that we just have this one spaceship, superbly designed to support humans, nothing else we know of in the universe will make it possible for us to live, we better catch on in a hurry. So we used to have the steamships. We had the SS Queen Mary, steamship Queen Mary, so forth. I was saying SS, well, that means Spaceship Earth.
Yes. Steve Meyer.
This morning you posed a question to the group, what are you going to do about it, when you were talking about people's selection of priorities. In these times where most of the population, at least of the United States, has never seen really economic hard times, how do we get more people to think about a priority on the survival of the Earth as opposed to setting personal pleasure objectives in their personal decisions?
Well, I'd like to, I did personally live, when the last depression came in 1929, I was already, see, I was 35 years of age, so I lived through it and kept great track of it and so forth. We did come to complete cessation. We're going to have another one. We'll go through a very great deal. We're going to go through enormous tribulation. I hope you listen to what I was saying here.
Yes.
Evolution is now definitely going to get rid of nations, which were all right in our early survival when we didn't have any transportation, didn't have any communication. You had to know how to get on locally. But today, it's going to be everybody or nobody. And that's why I said that in this piece, we have something developed. The United States is not a nation. A nation is a group of human beings who for maybe 1,000 years have been isolated geographically from others. And those who have been able to survive under those particular geographical conditions have only those who also survived under those conditions to marry. So they tend to inbreed. Mm-hmm. When Russia came to developing USSR, they had 148 nations that actually looked differently from one another. They've been isolated for 1,000 years, the great eastern vastness of Russia. And we have, but America, the people coming in from Cuba, all over the place, is by far the most crossbred phase of humanity. We're beginning to develop on this continent a world people. We are not a nation. And the most difficult of all the nations to go, because the nations are all blood clots with all kinds of controls, blocking the flow of the goods and the recirculation of the metals, because our primary metals today come from scrap and not from the mines. 85% of our copper comes from scrap. 70% of our steel comes from scrap. This is a circulating system, and as it comes on the market, it becomes available, you get better design. We've learned how to do things better. So there's a regenerative circulatory system, and every one of the great states is a blockage. So we have 160 blood clots. That has to go. We have then this one Spaceship Earth. We have 160 admirals on board one ship, each one supreme admiral. And each one has a statement over the oil tanks of the ship, puts a hole through the floor of the cabin and said, I own the oil. And you got to respect me, you got to trade with me. And another one has a statement near the beef refrigerator and said, I own all the beef. And you got to have trade balances here. And nobody's paying attention to how to handle the ship and where the ship is going. So all that has to go, and nature finds the United States the most difficult of all the nations to cope with. Why? Because dictators can make deals with dictators without having any reference to people at all. Or the same with dictatorial powers in Russia. But the President of the United States, in taking an oath of office, the first thing is he vows that he will protect the sovereignty of our state. If he ever talked about de-sovereignizing, he'd be impeached. So by far the most difficult was the United States. So evolution is doing it away with by bankruptcy. We are over $1 trillion that we in debt. We can't pay the interest on it. We're going behind $100 billion a year. It will not be very long before the people who get orders to produce munitions are going to say, what are you going to pay us with it? And we're going to recognize it. So this is going to happen in a great hurry. So but what I'm trying to get all of you to, don't worry about seeing that which is familiar disintegrating. There's nothing wrong with the umbilical cord, but after you're all through with it, you better get rid of it. The American flag couldn't have been more inspiring and more absolutely essential to the development on this continent of a place for a world people to begin to crossbreed and develop. but that's gone by its time now. So I'm not talking anti-flag or anti-anything. I'm simply talking evolution is bringing people out of common womb of permitted ignorance into a new relationship to the universe.
Lou Reed, a quick question.
This is the same extension, an extension of Steve's question, which is you do feel that there is enough food and resources to go round, and is this? How do you think how do you explain that? Is it because of nationalism that we are not seeing clearly that there are sufficient resources?
The food, for instance, there's ample food to go around to take care of everybody. And incidentally, we thought Hiroshima was an enormous catastrophe of humanity. About 75,000 people involved. A large football stadium, 75,000 people. Every day, 75,000 people die of starvation. A whole stadium full every day. And we have the complete capability to take care of them. The reason we're not is due to people want to make money, hoarding, holding off the market. These are things that are really extremely important. So when I simply say, we have now the design capability, technically, in that world of invisible alloys and electronics and so forth, to take care of all humanity, the highest standard living anybody's ever known. It can be done within 10 years of a technical revolution.
I'm sorry we're out of time, and I would like to say to you, Mr. Fuller, that you've brought great honor to this program by being here today, and we thank you, and we particularly appreciate that you chose our program to make your formal statement. Thank you very much. And I would like to express my appreciation of the panel. You've done a fine job. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great honor to have on our program R. Buckminster Fuller, who has really given us much to think about. I would like to invite you to be with us again for the next 4 weeks when we will continue this terribly important topic, the future of the United States. Will Orwell's 1984 be realized? We would love to hear from you, and please write to us at North Idaho College, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and we will respond. Please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum can be seen at this same time each week over this station. This production was videotaped earlier by a North Idaho College student crew for viewing at this more appropriate time.